Our next research presentation is on who migrates to Europe, our diverse demographic future. The goal is to show the migration patterns within both European country borders and regions and within European countries. What does it tell us? And to present that, we have Dilek Yildiz from the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. Take it away.
Thank you, and thank you for pronouncing my surname correctly. So, I would like to take your attention a bit to the national level projections we have done for only a couple of minutes, then we will go back to regions, I promise. So, I think, yes. So, as you all know, the population dynamics in Europe are increasingly shaped by migration, especially over the last decade, as the natural population change has been negative. Here I have a little figure for you that I took from Eurostat, where you can see the population change by component from 1960. And here you can see the red line, which shows the births minus deaths, which is negative, meaning that the natural change is negative for Europe. Indeed, if you look at the data from 2024, for 20 EU member states, the natural change was negative. And then out of these 20 countries, 13 countries were able to sustain their population growth only through positive net migration. This, in the Europe level, you can see with the blue line here, which shows the positive net migration in the last part. So this difference between net migration, births and deaths, this is what's going into the Europe's population, the demographic future, we can say that. But when we talk about migrants, I'm talking about international migrants. Leo mentioned that international migration is positive for many regions. But I just want to not only talk about the numbers, but also the composition of migrants, because they change the composition, who is coming, and the migration is very selective when we look at the age, education, and sex dynamics. And including these characteristics into our projections are quite important, because they determine how many babies are going to be born, because we know that the birth rates change by education of mothers. It's going to determine how long people are going to live, how healthy they are going to be. In addition to these demographic effects, education also in the economic terms affect the productivity, labor market structure, fiscal sustainability, innovation capacity, and many more. So what we do at IASA and the Wittgenstein Center is we do population projections that model the human capital into the future to enable to include this dimension to have a real idea of what's going to happen in the population composition. Here, if you look in, for example, Germany, we looked at in 3 groups of people based on their country of birth. In the middle, we have the natives. On the left, we have EU, and the right, non-EU born people. This is by age, and then the middle group 2 bars show us between 20 to 39 and 40 to 64, which is like the labor force age group. And we see that the non-EU population has the much higher share in their group than natives and compared to other EU-born people. But age is not the only different thing. If we focus on the 20 to 39-year-olds, and now look at their education, here we have the high education on top and low education on the bottom, we say that the non-EU born people have higher share of low education. Even though they're in the high educated group, they have similar shares to the native, a little bit less than native, but similar to the EU born people. That's why when we project the populations, the EU member states until 2040, we improved on our previous human capital projections and also wanted to include the country of birth in these 3 groups. We wanted to include more, but this was the data available because even though Leo said there is more and more data, this data, when we compare countries, is usually not harmonized and comparable directly. So there is still a bit of a way to go in there. And then we do have age, sex, and free education levels. And then these characteristics allow us not to look at only the quantity of the population and migration, but the composition for the future. Again, continuing with Germany, here I have a figure showing the education composition in Germany in 2020 and 2035 period, of course projected with our scenario. We see a 12% increase in the highly educated group here. You can follow with the arrow. And then this is mainly driven by the German-born population. Of course, German-born population includes the descendants of previous migrants, so everyone born in Germany. But we also see that the EU-born and the non-EU-born have increased their high share in high educated. This is because globally we expect higher educational attainment in almost all countries in our scenarios. And finally, I would like to talk a little bit about the net migration flows. We projected immigration and emigration separately, but for the sake of this clear ideas, I want to show you the net migration here. We have Germany compared to Poland, and the black dashed line is the 0, which means above is like gaining migrants, below is like losing migrants. And then we have 3 education levels, low, middle, high, and we expect Germany to continue getting migrants, especially the high educated group is increasing quite fast, while the low educated are decreasing. And if you look at Poland, we see that Poland continues to lose highly educated population, but it's getting a bit closer to the 0 line, meaning that this is getting less and less over time. And then what's interesting here is also the middle-educated people. Well, we expect them to, moving from emigration of middle-educated people to immigrating more middle-educated people. So with this, I don't want to take too much time from the discussions on the regional area, and I will give the stage to Leo to talk about the distribution of region.
Okay.
Yeah, if you just, it should be on next.
Okay. Yeah, and to follow up on Dilek's talk, education also matters for the region. To show that this is not sort of an abstract statement, I'll show you 2 regions in Bulgaria, and one is the region of, I hope I pronounced it right, Lovek, and the other is Sofia. Sofia, as we all know, is the capital of the country, with such a picture, and Lovek is totally different. It's a very rural regions at the sort of the foot of the Balkan areas. So how does this compare in terms of demography and migration? Well, first, these pictures are taken from the dashboard. Sofia as a city is sort of young, as you can see. The bulk of the age categories in the pyramid are within 20 to sort of 35, and Lovek is totally different. It's an urn upside down with the biggest categories in the higher ages. Well, that will not surprise us too much, but that sort of sets the stage for what happens further. Well, this is the distribution of net migration by education in Sofia, and I should maybe tell a little bit about the background of how we got to these numbers. We have not made in our own projections. We combined the national projections from YASA, as Dilek showed, with the regional projections of Eurostat, and we combine them in some way that we take the educational level from the YASA data, and with the regional level from the Eurostat data, and we do an estimate in terms of regional characteristics of educational level. So these are model outcomes of projections. And you see that for Sofia, high educated is on the rise in terms of, well, a big plus of people in terms of net migration. Low educated, more or less zero, and middle educated, negative. For Lovec, it's a little the other way around. High educated and low educated, both negative, and middle educated on the rise in Lovec. So this is really a difference in the structure of the educational level of these two regions, reflecting urban-rural differences and reflecting the characteristics of these regions as well. Why is education then important for regions? Well, Dilek told already about the national level, but at the regional level we are talking also about a very important component and dimension of population. Education enhances regional development. Education at educational level of a population in a region supports the transition from a traditional economy to a knowledge-based economy, and it helps reducing regional brain drain. It is also crucial for obtaining EU cohesion funds, in terms of sort of the term smart specialization. And the term was already mentioned this morning, resilience, how to create resilience in regions. Well, it turns out that education and civic participation and resilience are very much associated with each other. You need high educated people to create this resilience factor in the society. So these are important elements of why education matters also at the regional level. And you may think, well, if that is the case, then, well, I mean, we can't all build universities in every region. That's not, it's, well, in some cases that is very well the case, but you must also think of the level of education of those who are planning to move into the region. So it's also the quality of life or the quality of the educational level of those migrants moving in. So education is really something to keep an eye on in terms of also regional policies. In conclusion, yeah, regional policies should take into account education as a foundational input for regional attractiveness. Okay, thank you.